welcome to the second part of this lecture on film noir. This part of it is going to look at the beginning and development of the cycles, starting around about 1940 and ending around about 1958. We can see probably four distinct elements or periods within that one overarching era we now know as film noir. We mentioned before that some of the key influences have been films such as Citizen Kane and German Expressionism. We can see also, as I said before, things like the horror movie cycle that appeared in 1930s, films like Dracula and Frankenstein and Wolfman. The initial films that came out during the actual war period, or just before the America started, entered the war, and during the war period. This is the beginning of the style. It's not fully fledged film noir as we understand it, but certainly we can see elements of the style creeping in. And it's worthwhile having a look at some of the clips you can find on YouTube to these films, such as Stranger on the Third Floor, which is now considered the beginning of the cycle, made in 1940, and the archetypal Maltese Falcon of 1941. There is also This Gun for Hire, which is quite a well-known one as well. It's beginning to use low-key lighting, the chiaroscuro lighting, which I mentioned before, and depth of field shooting. And we're beginning to see the development of the key characters, such as the hard-boiled private eye. What we see between 1944 and 1947 is, more often than not, these films being shot in the studio and using expressionism much more overtly. So films like Laura, Murder My Sweet and Double Indemnity, which we'll be looking at later, are all key films from this period. They utilise the ideas from the experimental period, which came before, but expand on them, and you can see a much more sort of expressionistic style all the way through. A key film from this period, as well as Double Indemnity, is Out of the Past, which is mentioned before, and it's also, as you notice, it's coming towards the end of this period and is partly filmed on location. Heroes tend to be less romantic, often directly involved in the crime rather than private investigators of the previous period. The third one moves away from studio filmmaking to out on the streets. This is partly influenced by Italian neorealism, which started to appear around about this time. The idea of going out onto the streets and filming in real locations. And also photojournalism of Ouija, who was a famous photographer of that time. And often these are government or police agents as heroes. It moves away from the actual people involved with crime on the wrong side of the tracks, as it were. So films like Call, Northside 777, or The T-Men, or The Naked City. And finally, we begin to see the tail end of this style or cycle. Starting around about 1952 and finishing around about 58, 59, we get to see films like Kiss Me Deadly, Pick Up on 7th Street, and Touch of Evil. These are deliberately confusing. They have heroes often that are psychotic, suicidal impulses, quite often very much anti-heroes. There's no sort of lingering idea that even though they might be on the wrong side of the law, they will do the right thing. These people are pretty horrible. Often dealing directly, overtly with political issues such as nuclear war or communist infiltration. After that, we don't really see film noir as such, but what we do see is what we call neo-noir, and we begin to see that picking up from about the mid to late 60s onwards, and then we get to see the whole point here is that obviously many people who went to film school in the 60s would have learnt about film noir and started to use the ideas and the key style motifs within their films. So people like Spielberg and Lucas directly would be influenced by that, and you can see that in quite a lot of Spielberg's films himself, and has said as much. And Paul Schrader is another such example, all the way right up even to things like Matrix and some of the films we've seen, such as Memento.